So you've joined up.
I joined up
and
did my basic training.
And you've literally been sent straight out to the Middle East.
Well, after I did my trade training, of course, and it was straight out there, and 90% of us had never been out over the channel even, you know, right?
So what understanding did you have of where you were going and what to expect?
Absolutely none. Apart from the fact that one of the chaps who was on the same course as me, and I'm still in touch with, I should be seeing him in a couple of weeks' time, he was the son of a warrant officer who'd been around the world. He'd been to all these different places and took the family with him. And I can remember his words to this day when we were given our postings, and every single one of us was being posted to the Canal Zone. And he said, I knew it. He said, I knew it. He actually said, I bloody knew it. He said, the worst bloody posting in the world. In fact, he used stronger language than that. And so it turned out. He said, you'll never believe, he said, the stink and the flies and the heat and everything like that. And he said, you've got to work in that. Apart from all the other, you know, problems of doing guards and escorts and things. So
how did you feel? What did that make you feel, knowing that you were going to the worst posting in the world?
Shall I be frank? I was absolutely excited. I was going to a place that I knew little about, only in history books, and I was in the company of fellas. We were all like-minded, and I thought, well, this has got to be some experience, you know. How much of an experience? I didn't realise at the time, and so we were yet to find out.
So just briefly tell me, how did you actually get there? How long did the journey take? What was the feeling like on the way?
Well, this indicates again the form of transport at the time. It was a military aircraft, or rather it was one that was hired by the Air Force from a charter company, an Avro York, and it took, including the stopover at Malta, 14 hours. It's unbelievable. And as soon as you touched down at the destination place, and this was a place called Fade, which was the major RAF trooping base in the zone, as soon as the doors opened, that's when you first realised, you got a first inkling of what it was like. It's pitch dark, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the aircraft door opened, suddenly this heat came in, and the smell, I shall never forget that smell as long as I live, and it was the smell of the sand, obviously, a dusty, dry, arid sort of smell, mixed with this peculiar smell of fuel oil, which most of the Arab villages used to use oil for cooking, and this was mixed in with the aviation gasoline on the airfield, and it was pitch dark, and we could hardly see anything at all. So we came out of the aircraft and we boarded a coach, an RAF bus. We sat inside, and our next surprise was the driver popped up, got in his seat, and another guy got in, and he had a Sten gun, holding a Sten gun across his chest. And I thought, what do we need him for, you know, like this? And then I realised that, well, somebody said, well, you'll find out sooner or later. So as soon as we came off the base and hit the main treaty road, as it was called then, I was absolutely astounded to look on both sides of the road and see army camps and Air Force bases and one thing and another, either side of the road, and these fellas walking up and down barbed wire fences, and some were in emplacements in pits, you know, with a machine gun. And I thought, this looks like something from the war. And it was very, very difficult to come to terms with, because we hadn't read anything, you know, to this effect. We certainly hadn't been told anything.
And these were British troops?
Oh yes, yes. And there was a mixture actually. We had Mauritians and Sudanese, and these were all paid for by the British government. And
to bolster the numbers in the zone.
yes, because they were also able, because they spoke Arabic, certainly the Sudanese, they were able to play a role that we couldn't actually play ourselves at the time. And there were East Africans, the East African Pioneer Corps. They did certain duties and tasks around the various camps. So that was our first impression of seeing these people there. And it was still dark. And then we got to our first place, which was a transit camp at a place called El Hamra. And the next thing, which brings in another sense, was in the morning, this is a big flat piece of desert with tents, you know.
This is your camp?
This is the camp that we were going to be eventually posted from to our final posting. And we were allowed to have a quick sleep after the journey. And I heard, first of all, dogs barking. And we all came to realise that later on, these wild dogs were quite common out there. Payards, we used to call them. And they used to roam around in dozens of them, packs of them. That was the first sound. The next sound was I heard these bagpipes. Yes. And I thought, good Lord. Well, I didn't realise, but not far down the road was a regiment, a Scottish regiment, and of course this was their Reveille call. And then I also could hear a bugle, also playing Reveille. And I thought, this is absolutely incredible. I got outside and the sun was still coming up and it was already getting very, very warm. And I looked out the tent, up and down, as far as I could see. And the first thought was, this is just like these guys who were on the northwest frontier in India in the 19th century. They must have experienced something similar. It's just what it was like. So anyway, within 24 hours, I actually got posted back to Fade, and that's where I spent the rest of my service there.